been a while since I did anything on the Cedar Strip WAW of consequence. Today I'm back to working on the wheel well molds and getting them set in place so I can do the carbon fiber layup. And this has been rather a long-term process because the original wheel wells were quite a bit larger than the new wheel wells, and if you followed along, you know that was causing problems with aerodynamics that I discovered when I did a test with some Coroplast wheel pants, and I'll make sure I link to those videos at the bottom. But I originally last week started trying to fill in the spaces around the wheel wells with bits of cedar strips. And I mean, it was sort of a functional idea, but I could see that it was going to cause more frustration than it was worth. So I went back to using 1/4-inch foam board insulation that I picked up in a large bale back when I first started building this thing, and I have some extra pieces around. So what I did is this. I took a piece and I laid it up and traced around it and filled in the whole wheel well. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking the mold and bit by bit I'm pushing it further back against here and tracing more along these upper edges, and till the point where the wheel well can go in fully down here flush with that edge, and then it ends up looking like this. Is the fit absolutely 100% perfect? Not quite, but this could probably be bent in just a little bit so that it fits flush with the top. And around the sides, it fit in quite nicely. So I'm going to do that now on the other side, and then I can make sure that I've got the right distance between where the strut mounts are going to be on both sides, so that I make sure that they're tilted in just the right amount. And then I can start working on getting a piece to fill in down there on the bottom on either side. And at that point, it's just getting things kind of flush up against this upper edge. It's pretty close, but I may need to either do a little bit more grinding up here, which would be a pain in the butt, or just kind of fill that area in with a little bit of filler. And then at that point in time, it's just a matter of cleaning things up so that I can get good adhesion with the epoxy, and then I can finally start working on laying up these wheel wells. Both sides are done now, and as you can see, there's not a dramatic difference in the width, just a tiny bit off on each side compared to the original wheel wells, which I believe were 52 centimeters. But what's going to make the difference is this part up here on the top, and the fact that there will no longer be a lip around here. There was a little bit of a raised lip made out of the same 1/4-inch material that I'm sure was screwing up the airflow here around this area. It will not be pink in the final version. That area is going to get painted the same color as the wheel well. But when you look now here from the side, you can see that this is going to extend down considerably more than the original version, and that's going to help keep the air smoother across this area, because there won't be such a big gap between the top of the well and the wheel itself. I have finally finished the surround. It's just some 1/4-inch insulation and blocked in here with some bit of wood that was sitting around, because of course these new wheel wells are smaller on the bottom than the other ones. And what's going to happen is it's going to be a little bit of carbon fiber that's going to wrap around here and cover all of that up, so you won't see it. It'll get painted. Then the molds are done, and they have been primed with some primer I had sitting around. The primer bubbled up in some areas for some reason, so that's why you see white spots. It's fine. This is not an aesthetic area. Nobody's going to see it behind the wheel wells, and what little imperfection there is can be sanded out. These have 4 layers of release wax on them so that I can pull them back out, and the carbon fibers all cut into pieces inside. So all I have to do is bring it out here to the garage. It's a bit warmer than I would prefer, so I'm going to have to work with small batches of epoxy. It's as cool a day as it's going to get, and I'm just not in the mood to haul this into the basement and set it up in there. So we're going to hope for the best, small batches, because it's going to bolt fast. And yeah, let's lay up some wheel wells. Alright, I've got the wheel wells laid up finally. It always takes me a while because, well, first, it's hard to reach, and second, I don't do very much composites work, so it's actually pretty close to dark outside, but I am finally done. I got it laid up as tightly as I could, and hopefully I don't have a bunch of voids in there, but I'll find out when it's dry. This one on the right I did first, and that one's already starting to get pretty hard. It's just warm enough that things are moving along nicely with the process of drying. So I should be able to find out tomorrow just how good a job I did, and hopefully I also did a really good job on what's that thing called where I wax. Yes, hopefully I did a good job waxing the molds so they will pop out nicely and I won't have to fight with them. But man, I hate doing epoxy work. I wore a Tyvek suit, and even then I ended up with a little bit of epoxy on my arm, and I do have a little bit of an allergic reaction to that, so hopefully I won't end up with a rash or anything. But I'll be really curious to see how these turned out, and I'll update tomorrow. Alright, it's time for another update on the carbon fiber wheel wells. This video is not one of those videos where I go, oh, this is the awesomest thing I've ever built. This is going to be one of those videos where I go, don't do what I did. So there's the wheel well, and there's a number of dry spots in here, the worst being up here in the front, especially down right in here. It's super soft, and I just did not get enough resin in that spot, so that's going to need to be repaired. I also forgot that I've got a steering rod that's going to go in this front corner, and I need to beef that up. And I also forgot that over in here I'm going to be attaching the seat, and I didn't beef that up. So that's rookie error for sure. Up here at the top turned out great. That's where the strut will mount, and I got starting with 50 millimeters circle and going out 10 millimeters each time, 8 layers, along with the 2 layers of the 6-ounce carbon fiber, and along in here there was a layer of 12-ounce carbon fiber. I've got a little bit of a thing there. I mean, it's a little bit more flexible than I'd maybe like. However, I just compared it to my Quest, and It's actually not all that much different. The difference is in this area that's more flexible than I'd like, so I need to find out if I'm going to need another layer in that area, or if just extending the bridge up into here and making it a little higher like it is in the Quest on the Milan will be enough to kind of beef that area up, because a lot of it is really just weather protection. So even though I painted on epoxy on the mold, I did not get as nice of a surface as I was intending. There's spots here where it didn't really get through in here, and up in here, and up in here, and up in here, and some spots along in here, especially in corners and stuff where it just didn't really get that nice finish that I was hoping for. Mainly in the corners. There's some spots like in here where it didn't get quite enough epoxy. But the worst problem is that the release wax just did not go well, and I had to literally dig out the mold. Here are the pieces. Some parts I was able to pull off, but a lot of it just ended up having to get yanked out layer by layer, and that took several hours. And then because the release wax really didn't work very well, I had to use a combination of very careful work with the knife and with a screwdriver and with what's left of this plastic spatula, just to kind of pry all of the stuff off. And I still have a wheel well to go. So, rookie errors for sure. Alright, it's wheel well update time. So I contacted a velomobile building friend of mine for some advice on what to do with the wheel wells, because I was afraid that they were going to be too soft and they were structurally compromised. His suggestion was just to stipple in some really runny epoxy resin, which is easy to do because it's been pretty hot this week. So that's what I did as part of my kind of final finish coat, was to stipple some in. And one of the areas that was too soft was this area right here, and as you can see, that's much improved. There's a little bit of give there, but no more than you would expect in that area. And the same with the rest of it. It's much more structurally sound. It's just like the Quest wheel wells. So what I'm going to do now is I'll eventually need to put another coat, final finish coat in here, but it's going to need to be a lot better weather for that. It's just going to be too hot today for that. But I'll need to do another sanding, and then I can do another final coat to get these really smoothed out nice. There's some areas here where it's just a little bit too much of the texture. It needs to be a little bit thicker coat of epoxy. And same on the other wheel wells. There was some soft spots, but now they're just like they should be. Down in here is going to need a little bit reinforcement, because this area down here, and the same on the front side, is where the forward-facing arms attach, and I'll want to reinforce those areas. And that should be all the reinforcing that I need to do. So now it's time to start working on the bridge. I had started on this earlier. I've got all of the markings made in here. So now that the welds are done, I can work on properly fitting that and building the subframe for the boom. And then I can get that laid up after I cover it with some sheetrock mud like I have with this one. And I can also finish working